One thing definitely please be observant to is that I'm kissing everything on the Mixbus, okay? I'm not slamming any of these plugins. Generally, one modeling plugin that is supposed to have harmonics, if you slam it, oftentimes it's going to eat up your headroom, it's going to eat up your transients, it's going to eat up the punchiness of your sound. You don't really want that. You want to just keep enhancing and kissing. You want to shave, and you don't want to maul it. You want to shave at the barbers. You don't want to be decapitated. Good day, folks. I would like to talk to you today about an often discussed subject on the interwebs and other places. What is on my Mixbus? I have heard from quite a number of good mixers before that the Mixbus is really important, and it's initially something we might think to dismiss. Maybe we're just bringing up the level to the final level, and we've done all of our work on our tracks, but it might not be the best way to approach it, because anything we apply just on the master, that's going to decrease the amount of phasing and other artifacts that come from plugins on our channels. So if we can strike a balance between how much we put onto the Mixbus itself and how much we put onto channels, we can sort of minimize the overall number of effects, and that's going to lead to probably a clearer, crisper, cleaner mix with those transients that we really want. So without further ado, let me play for you before and after with me disabling my Mixbus. On this project in particular, I'd been testing a Mixbus as an actual track. So you can see right now there's a track below my master. That didn't really yield me any useful results, but it's stuck in the mix of this track because that's the way I set it up, and I'm too lazy to change it. So let's just turn this on and off. There's no, volume limiting happening at this point. Well, that's going to happen when I make the video to show you guys. It's everything but the clipping part. So this is with the Mixbus effects. Holy Hannah, throw a blanket over the speakers and honestly take out a lot of the intrigue of the track. Let's put it back on. Yeah, I do a lot of work on here, and I'm going to talk to you about all the different plugins that I use and why. I guess first let's turn everything off and talk about why I use each thing that I use. This is kind of a worst case scenario here. I tend to have a bunch of things I can pull upon for the toolkit, and then depending on how much work I need the Mixbus to do on the end of a mix, realistically, like we try to reference other tracks, but then sometimes the Mixbus would be used to move our track closer to our reference at the end. There might be more or less to do here. This first one, I used to have a different piece of software to do this task, but I became too cheap to replace it when it got very old, and I'm not going to bother to name that piece of software. The most important thing I'm doing with this, the only thing I'm actually doing with this, is setting the width of everything below 150 hertz to mono. I find this really important. If I have bass that is more or less isolated to the sides, it will tend to confuse the audience, and it will also sound a lot less tight. So you might not even hear a difference when we turn this on, but that's what it's doing. It actually comes in Reaper this way, this plugin, so it's quite handy. So there's a crossover, so I have it at 150. I've tried different numbers over time. For me, 150 is good. If I go higher than that, it starts to become real audible frequencies that you can hear on either side, rather than just sucking the bass to the middle. So let's turn that on and off. Not really hearing much to speak of. Maybe the bass moves to the center a little bit more. Yeah, actually I can hear that. If we pay really close attention, we can feel the low end just sort of move to the middle. There it is. Cool. All right, well, I can actually hear that without anything else, so that's fun. Let's look at the next one. Just a really basic low-end roll-off. I'm just using the basic ReaEQ for this. I haven't found that I need some sort of go-to high-pass filter, like some really sweet-sounding one. I will go and adjust the bandwidth or the Q of this, depending on the track. You can see like I'll scoop away more frequencies. One of the advantages of using a higher Q, if you're not aware of this, sorry, not a higher Q, a lower Q. One of the advantages of using a wider, I actually don't even know if higher Q or lower Q off the top of my head. I've heard people say it in both ways. Q can be sharper or the number gets larger. I don't know. Anyway, it's confusing to me as much as it probably is to you. A gentler slope, let's call it a gentler slope, a wider bell. One of the big advantages, no matter what EQ you use pretty much, is less actual phase distortion, which takes less punch out of your sound. So if you can roll off more gently, the low end, for example, you're going to keep that tighter. You're not going to hear a huge difference to this track when I remove the low end, I don't think.
Earth-moving machines are designed for safety.
Just takes a little bit of the rumble off the bottom, but sometimes I do a lot more with this.
This mechanic is lucky he's able.
Now, I'd be really remiss not to mention I really appreciate the views and the comments. I love interacting with people that check out the videos. And if you'd like to be more involved, definitely subscribe to the channel. I will not spam you. I only post videos about every couple weeks, and I don't do a lot more than that. Please subscribe if you can. Please hit the bell if you want to see all of my content as it's released. So far, not very exciting, I realize, but we're going to get to some more fun things. This Airwindows Righteous 3. This is something I picked up a long time ago. Airwindows is a very small company. I believe there's only one programmer. This, I think, is sort of like an Oxford inflator, but different. It says asymmetrical bloom. That's the control that you really have other than the loudness target. Basically, asymmetrical bloom, I think it's just an exciter of some kind. Maybe it adds more mid and high frequency to more transient elements somehow, maybe through a type of distortion. I think that's kind of what Oxford Inflator does as well. I've had this for a lot longer than I knew about Oxford Inflator. I have tried, and I think Oxford Inflator is kind of cool, but it's also super expensive for this very gentle kiss of an effect that it has. So I don't own it. I had it on a demo once, and I mastered an album for myself before the demo ran out, and I did never purchase it. So let's see if you can hear what this does. It's actually kind of cool. You do have to get the loudness target area right. If you have too loud, if your tracks are too loud, you will hear this plugin audibly distorting in a way that is not pleasant, and it will flatten out the sound. And you want to be way away from that target, if you can even get a copy of this anymore, because I don't know if it's made, I don't know the situation with it, and it's just like a 2 sliders and a button situation. It's off right now.
Earth-moving machines are designed for safety.
Now, without all the other effects, it's not as obvious what it's doing.
This mechanic is lucky he's able to complain.
It does flatten out a little bit. The whole sound flattens a little bit.
Do not operate tags on the control.
The next one is a Kush audio plugin. I love their stuff. I've known them for quite a long time. They have always made good quality stuff, hardware and software. It's a tube emulation, actually. And I've loved this one for so long. It does smiley face everything a little. It obviously adds a little bit of harmonic distortion, but it really tightens up the low end of whatever you're doing in a way that I can't replicate on anything else. So this has basically remained on my Mixbus since I have owned it. I tried it here, and I've never gone back. Each one of these effects is fairly small, but they accumulate. This one does tighten the lows up a lot. So there's actually sort of a theme so far for me. It's more of an exciter theme. You know, my mixes aren't actually ever as dull as you're hearing with all these effects off. And the reason why they're never that dull, most of my mix buses turned on from the get-go. Are the EQs set the way that I have them set here? No, not necessarily. Maybe they're flattened out. But the mix bus is turned on, and it does lessen the amount of work I do while recording and mixing all across the board. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.